Hello everyone, it's Lindsay, and today I'm going to have a review and a Bible journaling process for you guys. And I am reviewing a new stamp company. So this is Trinity Stamps, and the owner, Tanisa, reached out to me a few weeks ago and asked if I'd be interested in reviewing some of her stamp sets and bringing them to you guys. And I said, absolutely. I love bringing attention to new companies or smaller companies and bringing them to you guys so you guys can enjoy them, and maybe you had missed they were even out there. So here are a couple sets from Trinity Stamps, and it's kind of more geared towards card making and that kind of thing, but there are some pieces in here that can be used for Bible journaling, and so I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can use them. And whenever I am buying stamp sets, I'm usually trying to look and see at least 2 or 3 different ways that I can use the stamp set. That way I feel like I'm getting the most use out of them for how much money I'm spending on them. And so the great thing about these is that they can be used both in Bible journaling and in card making or scrapbooking or whatever your projects might be. I like that there is a variety of ways to use these. So before I even dive into what she sent, she has the cutest like personal touches. And I know not everybody's big into packaging and things like that, but there's just, I don't know, there's just something to be said about like personal touches. So she sent a little handmade thank you card. I love that, and a little note from her. And then inside the envelope, so the poly mailer was this kind of teal color, and it was all full of this fun confetti. So don't throw that away. I'm going to figure out a way to use it in a Bible journaling entry or a shaker card or something. And so I love that she includes that. She also sent some of the new star confetti. I'm not sure if this is available in the store quite yet. I think this is coming soon. It might be available as I post this video, but she sent a little sample of that so I could try that out. So she does have some confettis as well as stamps and some other products in her shop. So if you are a card maker, then she's got things for you, but I think it'd be fun to include some of these in Bible journaling entries as well. So she did send that for me to try out. And then she asked which stamp sets I wanted to try, and so I asked for these 2, and then she sent a little bonus one here. So this is Let Love Grow, and I absolutely love the little succulents and the crystals, and that there's extra little pieces so you can kind of build these up. And then this is where you're going to get a variety of uses. So you can do cards, so happy birthday cards. I'm a sucker for you. I think that's super cute. But then there's some phrases in here that you can use in your Bible journaling, and I am going to use this in the video today. So let love grow, bloom where you're planted. I'm going to be using that in a journaling entry. So I love that one. This one here is hello, sweet friend. So this one is, as far as the phrases go, more geared towards card making. So you've got hello, missing you, thank you, just a little, my sweet friend, so very much. So you can kind of pair these up to make sentiment on your card. And then you've got this big floral bunch, and then some extra little pieces if you want to tuck those in, or if you wanted to maybe cut these out on cardstock and add them in to add some dimension to this piece, you could do that. And so I did make a sample card here with that stamp set. So these stamps are very, very intricate. There's a lot of little pieces or little places in them to be colored. So I found that the best way to color these in is to actually stamp them and heat emboss them. If you have questions about heat embossing, I will link a video down below. I have a Tip Tuesday all about heat embossing, and that just kind of creates little walls or barriers. So it's easier to keep the color in the places that you want to keep the color, because it is very, very intricate. But I just went ahead and watercolored this with some Distress Oxide inks, used one of the sentiments from there, and then on the inside I went ahead and stamped another sentiment, and then this piece is actually from this little smaller 3x4 set. So she threw this in as a bonus. This is Hopeful Flowers, and the flowers are not identical to the ones in this set, but they are similar enough that you can kind of use them together. So that is, you know, making cards. She's got all kinds of card samples on her Instagram that you can see, and they're just big, bold images where you're not having to do a whole lot of stamping. So I love that you're not having to build up big pieces, but you could do some stamp layering and fill this out even fuller if you wanted. So this piece here has, of course, that little watering can, and then it's got some great pieces that would be good for Bible journaling, like these corner pieces. This you could make like a faux washi strip along the edge of your page, and then all these fun little floral bits that you can add in there. So this is a smaller set that would work in the margins of your Bible journaling. So there is a look at the stamp sets that she sent. There are several others available on the website you can go check out. But let's go ahead and dive in, and I'm going to be using this stamp set here to create a Bible journaling entry. So I'll go ahead and put you on fast forward and we'll jump right into that.
Okay, so I decided to go ahead and work in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 17 all the way down to verse 24, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. But first off, I decided to go ahead and stamp off these images onto some cardstock rather than directly into my Bible. And that way I could feel free to paint, make mistakes, do some heat embossing, all that goodness, and not worry about messing up the Bible page. So I'm using a Tim Holtz stamp positioning tool. This is not necessary. You could definitely just use a clear stamp block to stamp these images out. But because they're so intricate, I thought I'd go ahead and use my stamp positioning tool. That way, if I didn't get a good impression, I could go ahead and re-stamp it, and I can stamp several images all at once. So I just loaded up all the stamps in this tool here, and I just have some 65-pound white cardstock. And I am going to prep it with my EK Success powder tool, and that way I can go in and do some heat embossing. And like I said, check out that video down below if you have questions about heat embossing. But I'm inking these images up with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. VersaFine is a pigment ink, so it stays wet a little bit longer, and that way I can go in and immediately add some clear embossing powder. So you're not really going to see what this does, but basically it creates kind of a raised, clear, plasticky feeling everywhere where the stamped lines are. So it's kind of like when we did like coloring in on those felt posters. It kind of is similar to that, and then it kind of gives you guidelines for your paint to sit in. So I applied that clear embossing powder, and now I'm just heat setting that with my heat tool and getting that good and melted. So I did go ahead and stamp those images twice just so I had plenty to work with and in case I made any mistakes. And I am painting using my Prima watercolors. Now this is just regular cardstock, not watercolor cardstock, so I want to be sure that I only use a small amount of water, that way I don't mess up the paper. But I'm just going in with a variety of greens and pinks and purples, and that's kind of the fun thing about succulents is there's such a variety. They are so fun to color. You can do realistic with greens and browns and things like that, or you could get a little crazy and throw in, blues and purples and just a lot of different colors. And so I think there's such a variety of ways that you can color these in. You could even treat them like flowers, paint them like flowers instead of succulents. They could kind of go either way, some of these. So have fun with it. But I am going in and kind of darkening up some areas. And at first I was being like very careful about coloring like each individual petal and spending a lot of time, but I realized there is just so much to color. So I decided to kind of speed it up. I am dropping in some pinks into the tips just to break up the green a little bit, just so it's not all, monochromatic and all just greens and yellows and things like that. So it's just kind of fun to pop in some of those other colors. And here is where I decided, nope, I'm just going to drop color all over and not worry about shading. Like I said, these are very intricate little pieces. So I decided not to take too much time shading and things like that. But you can see I'm able to work right next to wet areas, and because this is heat embossed, nothing bleeds, nothing goes where it doesn't belong. Everything kind of stays in those open areas where it's supposed to, and that way I can quickly paint these and not have to wait for certain areas to dry, and it just kind of contains the color and holds it, so I can be a little bit more messy and not have to worry about it. So it is an extra step, but I think it really makes it easier to color in these images. And you can see I'm kind of switching between some yellow greens, some blue greens. Here I'll go ahead and start filling in some of these extra little pieces here in similar colors, and I'm going to cut all these out and kind of layer them. So I decided to go ahead and paint several extra ones. Now for the jewels, I pulled out my Kiritaki Gansai Tambi Starry colors. These are all metallic golds and champagne watercolors, and I'm mixing a little bit of that white shimmer in with the regular Prima watercolors. That way it adds a little bit of a shimmer effect to those watercolors. So don't feel like you need a full palette of all different shimmer colors. You can just pick up this smaller palette and add that shimmer into your other watercolors. It does lighten the color a little bit, but once this dries, it really has this very pretty shimmery effect to it. So it's a little bit hard to see on camera when I hold it up, but in person it really has this beautiful kind of frosted look to it. And it doesn't take very much to add into that paint to get that effect. So I did go ahead and just add that to those jewels, and there's so many different ways you can even paint those. So I did go ahead and fussy cut these out, but there are coordinating dies for these stamp sets. So I do believe I will be investing in those because I think I'll be using these sets quite a bit for card making and in my Bible journaling, and it would just be helpful and quicker to have the matching dies. So you can grab those. And before I stick them down, I am adding some white acrylic paint to the page. And this is just to add some contrast so those pieces kind of pop off the page a little bit more. Also add some texture to the background. But I am going to be stamping with some dye-based inks on the background. And so this is going to kind of help with some of the bleed through. It does still bleed through a little bit, but this kind of helps tone that down just a little bit. My verses are that very bottom paragraph down here. So since I got that paint a little too much on the verses, I'm just taking a sand eraser. I will link that down below, and lightly kind of rubbing off some of that paint. You have to be very careful on these delicate Bible pages, but I was able to lighten up that paint a little bit so I could see the text. And here I'm just going to go ahead and kind of position things so that the verse isn't covered up, and just kind of layer and stack things and fill things in. And here's where I can go ahead and stamp some of these filler images in the background. So I thought it'd be fun to have some just stamped in color to add some more texture. So I'm using some Gina K inks. These are Peach Bellini and Key Lime, and these are dye-based, so they will bleed through your Bible pages if you're not careful. I had less bleed through on the acrylic paint, but it did still bleed through just a little bit. So if that bothers you, you may want to use a pigment ink. But I'll just go ahead and start assembling all of those. And so, like I said, I'm working in 1 Corinthians 7:17 through 24. And basically what I did is I just Googled bloom where you were planted verses. And there are several verses in the Bible that statement, bloom where you were planted, is not an actual phrase in the Bible, but that concept is in several areas of the Bible. So I just Googled to see what verses kind of covered that, and it came up with here in 1 Corinthians. And 1 Corinthians 7:17 says, each of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you, and remain as you were when God first called you. This is my rule for all the churches. And then down at 23 and 24, it says, God paid a high price for you, so don't be enslaved by the world. Each of you, dear brothers and sisters, should remain as you were when God first called you. And that is the New Living Translation. I thought that was a good translation to kind of convey that thought there. And so this was so timely. I had set these aside, these stamp sets aside, and I was away at my stepsister's wedding this last weekend, and I came home from that wedding and was doing this video, and it just kind of worked perfectly because our whole family was together. There's 4 of us sisters, and I came home just so disheartened and so frustrated because all 3 of my other sisters are so much better off financially than my husband and I, and just kind of have their lives together, and things just seem to be going well for them. So I came home just so frustrated, just thinking, like, what am I doing with my life? I need to go back out into the workforce and try to make more money. I was super not nice to my husband and just kind of giving him a hard time about trying to find a better job and try to make more money. And I just got sucked into that whole worldly notion. And then I had to sit down after doing this entry and realize, no, like, we may not be as better off financially, but I am doing ministry work and work that I absolutely love and that I am proud of, and I get to be there for my kids, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so I just need to remember, this is where God this is where God has me. I'm not planted in some big wealthy house and have, a brand new car and a nice fancy job. I am planted here, and this is where He's called me. I believe He has given me this gift and this platform, and I really need to pray and work on being content in that and blooming where I'm planted, shining where I'm at. And so I hope that that's encouragement to some of you guys. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down below. Take a look over at Trinity Stamps to see what they have over there. Check out the blog post for more up-close photos. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.